Hey everybody, this is Dan Clark. Hey, I want to apologize for being late tonight. I said I was going to come on at 5:30 and it's a little bit past that. I was just doing some prayer and meditation because what I'm about to share tonight, I believe, is a secret. And I believe a lot of people may know the secret, and there are some people that may not know the secret. But I think that it's definitely worth sharing, because we're in a time where we need this power. What I want to talk about tonight is accessing superhuman human power that comes right through us. And anyway, I'll just wait a minute or so, but I want to talk about this because it's very important, because we're living in a time where all need to access this superhuman power. And it's not me who came up with this idea about superhuman power. It was actually Jesus. He said, "Don't marvel at what I'm doing, because the things that I do, these and greater you will do, and you will do, and you will do, and you will do." So all of us have the opportunity to express divine power right now. And I'm going to share with you the secret to how to do that. And I got to tell you, it's taken me a long time to believe it and to uncover it. But I once experienced it, and I experience it today, and I want to share it with you. It took a lot of years. I was 40 years bound up in a religion where I didn't think. I didn't have access to this power. 40 years of Jehovah's Witness, locked in to the matrix of Jehovah's Witness ideology. When I came out of the matrix, I stayed out of all matrix, political matrix, spiritual matrix, and I studied. I studied for 20 some years, everything I could study to prove what it is that I'm about to share with you. But what I want to share is so powerful, and I just want to make sure everybody's on because I have to talk about this. It has some biblical reference, a lot of biblical reference, and it's going to be wonderful good news for all of us. And it has to do with the crucifixion. But it's not the crucifixion everybody knows about. Everybody knows about the crucifixion that happened on Golgotha, where there were two, I don't know what they were, thieves, criminals, or whatever, who were on each side of Jesus, right? This is the crucifixion everybody knows about. This is one thief. This guy on the left said was facing away from Jesus. This guy was facing towards Jesus. And there's a huge, massive mystery in this, because what Jesus came to tell us wasn't so much about this, but was about this, the crucifixion within us, our crucifixion, so that we could fall into divinity, so that divinity could reign in us now. And so that's why he came, to die, to show us this. But this has actually been taken out of the Bible. It's really sad. The crucifixion here has been taken out of the Bible. But anyway, I just want to wait a minute to see if anybody else wants to come on board before I go into this mystery of the crucifixion. And I just want to say that it all started, if we go back in the beginning to Adam and Eve, it kind of started there. I guess I'll get going right now in this mystery. In the beginning, it said God blew into the nostrils of Adam. Who blew into the nostrils of Adam? God blew into the nostrils of Adam. So being this was God's creation, and God blew into the nostrils of Adam, he would have known that this thing, this creation of his, was going to, in churches they say it fell. But the truth of it is, we got our free will. When God blew into man's nostrils, and the story goes that he wasn't supposed to eat from the tree of life. He wasn't supposed to partake from the apple or fruit or whatever it was, and he did. And he became an individual. He became a sovereign individual. Free will. He got to play God with his own life. He got to go live his life as he chose. And that's what we've all been doing. Playing God. You know, there's a lot of spiritual people out there that says, that are saying, I'm God, I'm God. Well, we have been playing God. We have been, remove that, all our life. But Jesus said that I and the Father are one. And so how do we get to I and the Father are one? What is it that we have to do to come into I and the Father are one? Well, here's the allegory right here. Let's pretend this is Golgotha, and Jesus is in the middle place, okay? And please listen to me here. I'm not talking about. I'm going to transition from Golgotha, from the crucifixion everybody knows about, to the mystical crucifixion that very little people know about, okay? And this is where the power comes in. This is where the enormous power comes in through you and through me that we can access now. And we need to know this, okay? So, we're going to go up here to the crucifixion. The one on the right, the thief on the right, or whatever he was a criminal. He's facing inward. Jesus tells him today you will be with me in paradise. This one here, the left, is facing out, turned away from Jesus, doesn't want anything to do. The myth in allegory, this here is your left brain, because what we're going to do is we need to drop this crucifixion down now. We have to take it from here. And when we go into the myth and allegory, the crucifixion ends up being in your own head. This ends up being in your own head. So right here, I just want to show you, we've got the right brain, that's facing inwards, which is set in place, it's set in motion. It's an attractor field, it's a field of energy, it's set in motion. But it's dormant. And then there's the left brain that's facing away from the spiritual dimension. Now this here, up here, represents Jesus. This down here represents Christ, or Christos. So Christos is a spiritual dimension between two polar opposites, the right and the left brain, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark. So metaphorically, the left brain is facing outward. This brain is doing its own thing. It's playing God. It's living life doing its own thing. It's living its life as it will, how it will, and really it's doing just fine. It was meant to be that way. In fact, this was all meant to happen. The fall, everything was meant to happen because we needed to live out our free will. We had to live out our spiritual journey. That's what the prodigal son said. One son decided to go his own way and do his own thing. That was the prodigal son journey, okay? So, this is what we do. We live out of this hemisphere right here, out of our brain. This is the prodigal journey. What must happen for us to access enormous power is these two have to become one. Jesus said the two have to become one. The right and left brain has to become one before the Christ can emerge within this temple. So as long as I'm doing my own thing, I don't need this. I don't need my spiritual dimension. As long as I'm doing my own thing, living my prodigal journey, I don't need this. What happens to this, what awakens it here, is crisis. What happens here to stop the all-knowing self from doing its own thing is crisis. And so, what will get this to turn inward? Really nothing until someone dies, until you get cancer, until crisis happens. We're usually pretty satisfied right here. We don't understand the whole spiritual dimension that's trying to take place. This, like I said, this right brain is actually dormant. And this is in Hawkins' writing also. We actually operate on a, you might say, the old internet as opposed to high-speed internet when the two become one. Jesus said when the two become one, the eye becomes single. And we see with the spiritual eye, the pineal gland. And so, here's what happens. So, I would say right now we're in a pretty big crisis. I'm saying right now, this brain, this left brain, does not know the way out. So it has to access power greater than itself. It has to merge with this. It may not even know that this is here. It may not even know the spiritual dimension is there, because maybe a lot of people haven't been through crisis. We've been in an age where a lot of people haven't had to go to war, they haven't been hungry, they haven't been through like a serious crisis. So they haven't had to surrender this right here. And this is where the problem was. In the beginning, we decided, and God knew we would, and it was planned, that we would live out of free will. We would become gods to ourselves and live out that until we were tired of playing that role. And a lot of people have come to the end of themselves. I know I have a couple of times in my life, and I've experienced power greater than myself. I've lost my homes. I've lost cars. I've sat in foreclosed homes. I've been hungry. I've been broke. I've been where I haven't had a job, and I've been in some really bad places. And in that place, the mind stops working. The mind says, I need some help here. And, excuse me, the three words that I want to tell you about tonight that changed my life, the three most powerful words that I ever mumbled was, God help me. God help me. When I said God help me, I relinquished this power, this all-knowing power that I was living out of my whole life. For 40 years, I was living out of here, doing my own thing, working, figuring all the things out. But I finally came to a point where I couldn't figure it all out. And so I surrendered. God help me. I don't know the way out. And I think that's the situation we're all in today. We're all in a situation where we don't know the way out. And the beautiful thing about it is why it's the greatest opportunity right now is because in not knowing the way out, we surrender to God. We lay ourselves down and we surrender. And by doing that, we make God within this temple. Because in the all-knowing left brain, there truly is no place for God. So there's a relinquishment of the left brain. Dying to self, it's called in the scripture. We have to die to self. Jesus died to self. They just took it out of the Bible and they just put this crucifixion in. But Jesus said he came in as a man. He said he suffered the same thing we did. And as he grew and as he went along in his life, he surrendered. He surrendered. And he became less and the Spirit became more. And he said in the end, now I and the Father are one. I am the Father. And so this is what can happen to you and me. I and the Father can be one. I can speak is not my own, but the Father. And what I think may not be mine, but the Father. I can be a vessel of divinity just as much as Jesus was. Jesus said, the things that I do, these and greater you will do. These and greater. You will be a light. We have the greatest opportunity now for a massive awakening. The power of God in us. Awakening God in us. Think about this. What was Jesus' last name? He didn't say. He was called Jesus the Christ. Jesus the anointed of God. God indwelled Jesus. And he said that God could indwell us just the same as he was. And we could cooperate together with Christ in us, the spiritual dimension of God, the anointing. We can operate with that in right now. Be overshadowed right now. And we can be directed right now. And we can have peace right now. And we can have clarity right now. This is the greatest opportunity in the world. This is the gift of the COVID-19. This is the gift that's been given us to surrender our all-knowing selves and make place for divinity to reign in this So, the choice is up to us. There's power. There's great power. And I'm not the one saying it. Like I said, Jesus is the one who said it. The things that he did in greater, you and I would do. When do you think we would do it? We would do it right now, because now is when it's needed. Right now. So all we have to do is say those words, and we can say them together. God, help me become the person that I'm meant to be now, for this place and time now. And just think of the power. It says when two or more are gathered in that idea, there's great power. But what if millions and millions and millions of people surrender? God, help me. God, live in me. God, reign in me now. This is the gift. We can surrender. We don't have to figure it all out. We cannot figure it all out. We have two hemispheres up here. Jesus said when the eye becomes single, the pineal gland, the spiritual dimension within the two polar opposites, the harmonic balance, right here, the balance between the two polar opposites. When we get here, when we surrender, it allows us to connect here, living out of a center space, a spiritual dimension within two polar opposites. This is one of the greatest gifts that we have. This is one of the greatest gifts that's been offered us right now. And like I said, if we live in our left brain, I'll tell you what, it's going to be hard. It's going to be panic. We're not going to be able to figure it all out, because there's some things we just can't figure it out. And like I said, excuse me, it's taken a long time to validate this mystery that I've shared here. Jesus died here, so understand this here. This is what he wanted. He wanted co-workers, us to work, to be the light of the world. And he said, I never left. He said, I'll be with you always. The spiritual dimension has always been here. We just haven't wanted it. We've wanted our own idea. We've wanted to figure our own things out. And maybe we still do. But the sooner we come to the point, like I think the world's at right now, a very dark place, where it doesn't know where to go. It's a wonderful place, because we can surrender. God, help me. And I got to tell you, Dr. David R. Hawkins, in his book, Transcending Levels of Consciousness, talks about the power of surrender. Surrendering my will for the divine will. I'm surrendering myself, this part of my all-knowing self, my divinity, for God's divinity to reign in me. And he said that had an attractor field of 850. He has a scale of consciousness right here being Christ. I don't know if you can see that. And over here is 0. And then all these spaces in between is where we can live. We can live in fear. We can live in worry, apathy. We can live in grief. Or above 200, we can live in courage, acceptance, and so on and so forth. Now check this out. Surrendering my will for God's will in me has an attractor field, which means these are all attractor fields. Like I say, you can be a victim your whole life. You can be angry your whole life. You can be sad your whole life. You may know people like that just cannot stop telling their story. They cannot stop being angry. That's because those are attractor fields. People live in these energy fields, or whatever you want to call them, demonic fields. But the attractor field for surrender, this is why I say this is power. This is super, super, super power. Because any power over 200 is enormous power. 400, those are your sciences. 500 is when you get into mysticism. 600 is where you get into illumination, enlightenment. 850, according to David R. Hawkins, who's done a kinesiology test, said that 850 could invoke an archangel in us. He said when he was suffering from alcoholism and about ready to die, he cried out, God help me. He said, God help me. And all of a sudden, he said his life just did a 180. I mean, 12 steps wouldn't take him. Nobody would take him. He was done for. He was a throwaway. His life changed 180 degrees. And he said what happened was he surrendered. He said, God help me. The two dimensions came together. The spiritual dimension, the Christos, was active within his temple, within his mind right here. The Christos dimension was activated because he surrendered the all-knowing self. And when he did, he said that calibrated at 850. 850 is power. Power. Christ was at 1,000. He said that's what you could live in your body. That would be the most you could live in your body. He said it was Christ, Buddha, and all the great saints, or whatever you want to call them, enlightened. But this is what we're invoking. When we cry out from the heart tonight, when you're sitting in your chair, and you're sitting in the silence, and you're sitting there with your candle on, and you say, God help me. Really mean it. God help me. God help our nation. God help us. We activate that dimension. It invokes grace, divine grace, divinity, heavenly forces, right now, right where you're at. It's good news, guys. We're talking about superhuman power right here, right in the willingness to just surrender. Surrender our nature, our divinity, for God's divinity in us.
Tell what happened when you did surrender.
When I did surrender, when I was sitting in my room and I didn't have any water, I didn't have a car, I broke into my foreclosed house, I crawled into the window. There were just bugs flying around, flies, the water was turned off. It was really bad. And I only had myself to blame because I was drinking myself to death, sexually addicted. I had everything going on. I was just going out of control. And I was sitting there on my bed, and I was just sitting there helpless, thinking, I can't go to God. I can't turn to God. I've done this to me. Nobody did this to me. I did this to me. It was my desire. It's what I wanted to do. And anyway, I was laying there, but I had really nowhere to go. I crawled in through the window, and I was helpless. Literally, there was nothing I could do. Zero. And then I said those three words. I said this: God, help me. God help me. And within maybe an hour, what happened to me was amazing. I had this idea come into my head, a divine idea, that I should go put an application on this guy's car. And so I went down and I put an application on this guy's car, and he hired me, and it was humiliating. Trust me. He told everybody I was an idiot and made me sleep on the floor. And it was a horrible situation. Every time I walked into his house, he said, this guy's stupid, this guy's dumb, this guy's an idiot. Every name he could think of: chickenhead, idiot, stupid. I was called that for about 6 months, guys. But I surrendered. And in that surrendering, it led me to different circumstances. I was led here. Something started to rain that started to give me guidance. I went to another shop. A man came out and handed me $1,000 in cash in an envelope for no reason. $1,000. And I cried. Excuse me. And I said, what's this for? And he says, I just want you to know I want to hire you, but I can't right now. But he said, if you go over and stay in that hotel over there, he said, I'll ask my dad and see what I can do. So I left the guys that I was at. The guy who was calling me all the names, by the way, sleeping on the floor was better than sleeping in a foreclosed house that I could have went to jail in. Anyway, I went from that house to a hotel. He was paying on his credit card because he didn't want his dad to know. Anyway, long story short, finally a guy came over and said, huge job at the I think it was the Astros or the Cherry Creek Country Club. And I brought it to this guy and I said, hey, I've got a big job if you want to know about it. It's a Cherry Creek Country Club. And the guy said, wow, yeah, and I brought it in. It was a big job. So he hired me, and he paid me $1,000 a week to start, and which was $50,000 a year. And anyway, I was guided there. And when I was there, the guy says, you know, you don't have a car. You don't have this car you have has a broken off seat. It's really a mess. I mean, I had a 2x4 holding up the seat. This guy went down and got me a car. This guy went down and got me a Toyota Avalon. Gold package, beautiful. He co-signed for me an apartment. Now guys, this guy was basically a stranger. I met him one time. I actually worked for him a couple days, and this was years earlier. But he gave me a car, he co-signed for me an apartment. He called another guy said, well, I have all kinds of brand new furniture sitting in this one room that I want out of. So they brought it over. The next thing you know, I had a beautiful, beautiful apartment in a really fancy area called Ironstone in Denver. It had a fireplace. I mean, I was set up, guys, from nothing. You talk about coming out of the ashes, morphing out of the ashes. Now, I can't really claim that this brain got me out of my mess, but it was this surrendered state, this attractor field of 850, excuse me, that gave me power greater than my through my intellectual properties and gave me guidance. But guys, it didn't end there. It didn't end there. It led me to my beautiful wife. I surrendered. I got tired. I said, I'm not looking anymore. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not going to the bars anymore. I give up. In that giving up, I met my beautiful wife. My wife was the greatest gift that I ever could have. It was the perfect person for me in every way. And she was a business partner. She knew business. She knew how to make flyers. She knew how to do all the stuff that I didn't do. And little did I know I was going to start my own business. I had no idea. But that also led. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, long story short, guys, I was led to start my own company. I met angels and people along the way. Let me get a drink here. I met angels and people along the way, mysterious people, spiritual teachers. It was the most amazing journey I had ever been on. And you know, I don't like to always talk about financially, but financially I was blessed too. It was a huge blessing. I had made money like I had never made, probably 5 times what I made at that shop. And from starting my own business and me and my wife working together, and we had a beautiful home. And but I got to tell you, in '08, it all crashed again. It all came tumbling down, and I lost the house. But I did the same thing. I surrendered. I said, I don't know. I went into the room. I got silent. I got still. And in that stillness, a divine idea came in again, and I acted on it. And we were back in business really quick. So, what I want to say tonight is, if we're tired, if we've come to the point where we're tired of trying to figure it all out, we're trying to sort it all out, the end of ourself, this is the greatest time. This could be the greatest time of your life for transformation like you've never seen. To come into an attractor field of 850, to surrender and invoke God's grace within your temple is the possibility of happening right now, right where you're at. Surrender. God, take over the wheel. Let Him take over the station. Allow Him, her, whatever you want to call it, don't get hung up on that, to reign, the spiritual dimension, to reign in you right now. These and greater things you will do, and I will do right now if we do it. It was promised, but we've got to give up our sovereign divinity so that the greater I am can reign in us right now. And you know what? It's needed. So, if we're talking about the greatest awakening, wouldn't it seem like the greatest scare would have to take place? Because we wouldn't stop. We keep hating one another. We'd say them over there need to die. We wouldn't love one another. We've been told to love one another, to love our, pray for those who persecute you. This needs an overhaul. This, without this, is in trouble. Jesus said when the two become one, the eye becomes single, and the whole body becomes light. All the spiritual faculties, the chakras, the kundalini, I don't care what you call it, the anointing, it awakens in us. The spiritual dimension right now is the greatest opportunity for all humanity to reign in it now. It's always been here. It's just been waiting for us to say yes. Yes, reign in me now. Reign in me now forevermore. It's our free will. So that's what I want to say tonight. Anything else? That's all I want to say tonight, people. The greatest crucifixion to know us, to know about our crucifixion. Becoming less, dying daily, so that the Spirit can reign in us now. And you know when we do, we end up living from our heart. Our heart. Just think of that. We move from here to here. And that's the most powerful place in the world. And we can live out of integrity. And we're guided by that light. And that's the most beautiful thing. We are guided by a light greater than ourselves. And it's always been there. So let's experience it. Let's experience it right now. Can we all say it together? God, help me. God, reign in me now. I give up my will for the divine will. May the two become one in me now for the sake of mankind. May we all do this together. May we all surrender together. May we all invoke. May we all access divinity. Allow divinity to reign through us right now. So that's all I want to say tonight, guys. We are in the greatest opportunity in all of our lives. Or not. This is an invitation to you, to me, and to everybody to go deeper. God help me. How powerful is that? That's what's waiting for us. God help me. God reign in me right now. Okay, I'm going to tune out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you do, feel free to pass it on. Share it. It's taken a lot of years to uncover it, to know it. I've actually experienced it. My wife experienced it. I know a lot of people who've experienced it. It's real. It's real. So take advantage of the invitation. That's why this opportunity is here right now. Take advantage of it. Live from it. And forever be changed in it. And in this, you and I, as Jesus said, light of the world. The light of God in us. The light of the world now. Let's be it. Let's allow it. Okay? So that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Hope that encouraged everybody. This is a great time. Don't waste it. Don't try to think it out. All right? You guys have a great evening. Feel free, like I said, to pass this on. Please pass it on. And you guys have a great evening, a great weekend. I guess the weekend's coming up. And God bless you. Okay? Thank you so much. If any of this doesn't, feel free to message me, call me. My number's out there. Give me a call, message me. Let's communicate. Let's talk about it deep. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, whoever else is out there. I'm on my phone, so I can't see. I hope I came in loud and clear. And anyway, that's it. All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you.